Hello neighbors, it's Brad here from etrailer, and today we are taking a look at installing the Roadmaster Diode Wiring on a 2026 GMC Sierra 1500. Now this is going to be available in a few different configurations depending on what you need to pick up along with diode wiring. Our neighbor today actually had a tow bar that comes with the umbilical and the 6-pole, so we opted for this kit, and that way you don't have to get any parts you don't need and only what you need. But all the installation throughout the kits is going to be exactly the same. The difference really just comes if you need the 6-pole and that umbilical. It's available in a few different configurations as far as a straight cable, hybrid cable, or a coiled cable, so you have plenty of options available. But as far as diodes, it's a pretty simple system. Really all you're doing is running wires from the front of your vehicle on the 6-pole to the back of the vehicle and tapping into your factory brake lights. The diodes act as a one-way check valve for electrical, so that way you're not going to get any backfeed. It's not going to cause any issues with your normal light functions, but it's going to mimic the light functions of your RV as far as running lights, turn signals, and brake lights, so that way it'll keep you safe and legal. And this is really the modern way to get lighting on a flat-toed vehicle rather than your traditional magnetic lights. A lot of vehicles just aren't magnetic anymore, but also it's a really clean option and they're extremely reliable. We rarely see issues with these, and it's really not that bad of an installation to do. Now, the reason I mentioned those umbilicals and the other styles of kit is because that's how you transmit the signals. So first thing, make sure that the 7-pole on your RV is working properly, and it might be worthwhile taking a look for a charge line from the factory. A lot of them are going to be set up to send 12-volt power through, and if that's the case, you can utilize that on your 6-pole with a towed vehicle charge line kit. We put the Roadmaster one in on our vehicle today. It's a nice, easy addition to your diode wiring that's going to trickle charge your battery as you go down the road. So that way, when you get to the campsite and you unhook it, the truck's not completely dead. It is one that you're going to want to add in at the same time of making your connections on that 6-pole. But your 6-pole, along with your umbilical, is going to be part of making sure that you can flat tow your vehicle. And in some instances, some braking systems require tapping into the diode wiring. So if you're going to be flat towing your Sierra, you're going to be probably putting diode wiring on it. And I'm going to walk you through the entire process. It's really not that hard. You don't have to be a wiring expert. The trickiest part is really just running your wires to the back of the vehicle and making those cuts. But beyond that, I'll give you all the wire colors, so it should be pretty simple. But if you decide, you know what, maybe this isn't something I even want to tackle, I understand, but it's something that you're going to need to do to flat tow your vehicle. So if the diodes or really any of the components are stopping you from installing them yourself, you can find someone to do that by using our dealer locator. You'll simply put in your zip code and you'll find a list of shops close to you that can get all of those components installed so you can be out on the road flat towing. For you DIYers that are tackling this yourself, follow along. We'll get your diode wiring installed. So to start it all off, the first thing you're going to want to do is unravel your wires. And as far as the 6-pole, you can pick one up separate. Our neighbor today actually ended up getting a Roadmaster Nighthawk, which comes with the 6-pole as well as the umbilical. So that's why this kit really works out well. And if you have those already handy, or you already have an umbilical you want to use, this is going to be a great kit for it. So the first thing I do is find a spot where I want to mount it. And this truck is not exactly easy to find a spot, but I'll end up mounting my 6-pole through here. I just took a step bit and drilled that out to where I can get this run. So I left a nice loop here that I just kind of tie off to the tow bar. You can zip tie it, do whatever you want, but give yourself a decent amount of slack here. You can always push it back in, but if you're stuck with a little bit of wires, trying to make those connections can be really difficult. This red wire is going to be that charge line that I mentioned earlier that we'll be tapping in. So that's a pretty simple installation, and we'll have video on that a little bit later with this truck. But the basic concept, we're going to take our wire, and as I mentioned, I route this up. It is easier to do when you're doing your base plate because you have all of this open. So I routed my wires up through here and then made my way into the engine bay. So I pulled it through here, and you'll notice that I only have 3 of the wires, and that's because I stripped back the white wire. So cut just a small end and peel it back, and that way you can attach it to a ground. And this is the factory ground that I'm using, so I just split that off. You can see I just peeled it back from our wiring here and then continued the rest of it down here and then passed it down. Something else I noticed is a straight shot on this truck is pretty difficult in the front, just with a lot of suspension. There's no real easy path. So going this route, really, it makes it to where it drops down pretty easy right by the frame rail, and you can avoid axles, suspension, and really anything that could damage the wires long term. So here under the truck, where it comes down from the engine bay, I just routed this down. And I chose to use the holes in the frame. This really makes it easy to keep it nice and tight against the truck. And something else that I'll point out is this is a pretty long truck. So with that wiring, I'm kind of down to the tail end. I'm hoping that I'll have enough to be able to pull that in the taillight pocket. I should, but worst case, you have to extend the wires a little. So keep that in mind when routing it, trying to utilize as much space as you can. And that way you have enough on the tail end. So as I went through, just zip tie it up occasionally. That way it's not going to be loose. So I used some of the wire loom. But really I just continued this along the frame for a good majority of the vehicle. So that makes it nice and easy. Now down here, we do have to split our wires off, and that's where trying to find a good safe place to do it. We have our drive shaft, we have our exhaust. What I did was went back. There's a cross member that the tank is hanging on. If you go a little bit further back, there's a bracket for our wires. And this is where I ran our wires and zip tied it up here and then split them off. And where you're gonna split it, you're gonna have the yellow and brown. That's gonna be our left turn signal and running light. And then our green wire is gonna go over to our passenger side, which is gonna be our right turn signal. So from there, I just kind of ran this close to the shock mount. It's kind of hard to see here, but I left the zip ties so you can see it. So it goes back there. You can kind of see the green wire poking there. And then I routed it back and then made my way over the frame rail, and then eventually just kind of ran this into the taillight pocket. So it just goes back, just zip tie it up, make sure it's not going to touch anything. And then on the other side, it's pretty similar. It's actually a little bit easier, but you can see this one run across, and then just along the frame rail, I actually fed it through a hole that was on the body mount. You can do that if you want to, and then made my way over the pocket. You'll see this white wire that's routed as well. This is all that excess wire that I cut off when running our ground. And it does become handy because that's going to be our jumper wire from our running light signal. So we'll tap it in on the driver's side, and then this will jump over to give us our running light signal on the passenger side. For that, you can really just utilize the hitch. I ended up just kind of zip tying it up here. You can see that I just used some of the factory wire loom. And same thing, just routed this over to the taillight pocket and zip tied this up. So having your white wire ready to pull up with these wires, as well as your other side, you're gonna be in a good spot. First thing we'll do is get both of our taillights taken out, and all the steps that I'm gonna do on one side, we're gonna repeat on the other. So T15 Torx bit on these two screws. And with those taken out, there's going to be alignment tabs on the taillight. So some of these can get pretty tough to pop out, but you're going to pull straight back. So you'll have to give it a little bit of force here. And then there's this clip for the wire loom. I'm just going to pull this out so we have a little more room to work here. But we're going to separate our plug, and we'll just pull back our red tab. That's our locking tab, and then push down, and we can get this separated. And then put our taillight aside for now. And we'll be splicing into the wire section right here. So I'm going to cut back a little bit of this electrical tape, or if you can peel it back on the wire loom, just make sure you're not cutting your wires. Now the wires that we're going to be tackling are going to be the brown wire, and then there you can see that there's two different greens, I guess you'd say, but you're going to want to go with the brighter, the less matte colored one. Not the robin eggshell, I guess you call it, but just to see where it's at. Our brown one's going to be at this top right, and then the green we're going to be looking at is in the middle bottom here. So I did test those to confirm, and we're going to cut these and try to, I would say, right about in this area is good. Don't put it too close to the plug, and we'll just cut here, which I get is scary, but this is a nice robust system. So we're going to strip back about 1/4 of an inch on each of these, And have your diodes handy because we're going to be grabbing the ring terminal or the spade connectors off of them. And we're just going to take the blue ones. So grab 4 blue spade connectors. And what I like to do is twist these up so you don't have any frays. And if you can, just put a small bend at the end. That gives it a little bit more bite to where these hold on. I think just better once you crimp it down. And then once you have one on there, you just crimp. And I always give it just a quick tug just to make sure that we have a secure connection. We don't have to troubleshoot it later on. So we'll just continue on getting the other 3 on as well. So now we can make our first connection. So you'll see on the diode there's 2 spades that say in and 1 that's on the out. The out is going to go towards our plug side. So we'll get 1 on the green wire, 1 on the brown wire. And then grab the corresponding color, and you can put it on either one. It doesn't matter. Now, be sure that you're sliding it through the metal. It is easy to slip it on the plastic, so just make sure that you do have it clipped in properly. And that was the scary part of our factory wires. So we still have 2 here, and we have 3 wires down here that we need to pull up. So where this wire loom runs, there's a hole that it goes through. I would recommend running it through that. And you may want to use a fish wire technique. So if you have 1/4" airline tube in your kit, you can use that as a pull wire, but really anything that you could feed down there to tape up the wires to pull it up will make it a lot easier. So remember, I did mention that it was pretty close. It worked out perfectly here, but that's why it's important when routing. Leave yourself a little bit of extra. You could also, if you wanted to, start at the back and run your way forward. Either way, just kind of be cognizant of how much wire you're using. So the next thing we're going to want to do is split our brown and yellow. And the excess white wire, I'll just cut this now. And we'll strip back. Same thing, about 1/4 inch on all of these. And the brown and the white, you can actually go a little bit more because we're going to be tying these together. So to have a little bit of extra room to work with might be helpful. And the yellow, pretty simple. Grab that blue spade connector and get this crimped first. And yellow is going to be our left turn, so our stop and turn signal, because they're combined. And this one we can attach to the green diode. Now sometimes they're a little tight to slide these on, but got that attached. And then our white and brown, because we're jumping the running light signal together, we'll twist this. And that's where our yellow spade connector comes into play. So it's a little larger diameter, allows you to get both of those wires in there. And with that crimped, that will go to our diode with the brown wires. And that's really going to do it for this side. So what I like to do, you can put some silicone around here if you really want it watertight. You don't have to. I like to take electrical tape and wrap this all together and kind of create a little bit of a wire strain. That way it's not going to pull these out at any time. There is a double-sided adhesive, so if you want to stick these together, it's not a bad idea. But yeah, I'll get this wrapped up with some tape. We'll plug in our tail light and get this all put back in, and then head over to the other side to where we can pretty much repeat the same process. Now the passenger side, it's going to be pretty well the same. In fact, you're using the same color wires, which makes it nice and easy. The only difference is going to be, instead of a yellow wire going to the green, our green wire is going to the green. And then instead of a brown wire going to the brown, we have that jumper white wire. So with this all attached, I'll get this taped up as well and that taillight put back in. And then we can head up front to get our 6-pole installed. Now, really dependent on base plates, sometimes you have a nice easy spot to mount these up. And as I mentioned before, I drilled out the hole. So we're going to have to do a little bit on the back side before feeding the wires through. And what I'm going to do, I mean, you could self-tap this into the plastic. It's probably not going to, go anywhere. But me personally, This is on the front of the vehicle. It's going to see weather, and I want to make sure that this is a nice solid hold. So I have a bracket that I'm going to be putting on the back side, and I also have a boot that's on the back side of our plug. So we're going to want to make sure that we have the wires pass through here on the back end, and then feed them back in so we can make this attachment. So I'm going to pull them out for now. And then I'm going to just feed up the boot over them. And then also that bracket. And then we'll feed our wires back through the hole. So with our wires pulled through, I did just kind of split these so it makes it easier for us to strip. And we're going to strip back about that much on each of them. And for our plug, it's actually pretty easy as where these are denoted. So there's going to be some molded letters that we're going to go to the corresponding spots. The first one we're going to attack is going to be this tall center post. That's going to be for our charge line. And these have small Phillips head screws in them. And what you're going to want to do is just back them out, not completely, but enough to where you can feed the wire in. Give these nice twists, get any of the stragglers in there. And once you have that in place, just snug this down. And that's your first connection made. So I'll go through, I'm going to get these all attached to the corresponding spots, and then I'll show you exactly where they go. At 12 o'clock, so if you look at the latch going upwards, 12 o'clock is TM. That's tail marker, so that's our running light signal, and that is our brown wire. GD is going to be ground, so that's going to be our white wire. LT is left turn, that's yellow, and RT is our right turn signal, which is green. So with all of that in place, what I like to do is going to be a few things. Putting some RTV silicone along here to just kind of seal this all up will prevent any moisture from getting in there and breaking down the wires prematurely. This is on the front of the vehicle, so anything you're driving through, it's going to see. So I'm going to goop that up, and then when I slide this back, it may be hard to see, but when I put the boot on, I'm also going to take some electrical tape and wrap it all up so it seals that up as well. So I'll get that all in place. So I slid the boot over, and as I mentioned, that electrical tape, I like to just wrap it around here so it can't separate, and then I'll continue it around the wires to kind of pinch off that area to, again, just keep water from getting in there. Now, as I mentioned before, you could just run self-tappers in and it'd probably be okay. I'm gonna drill mine out. I got some hardware and I'll get this all tightened down. But really, that's gonna do it for the installation. The last thing that you do need to do before hitting the road is check to make sure that it's working. So if you have your umbilical and your RV ready to go, it's a good time to hook all that up and then run through those light signals. Now I'll be using a test box, which is gonna simulate hooking up to a 7-pole on your RV. And I'll be running through the light signals with this switch, but got my umbilical hooked up. So as you run through it, go through all the light sequences, and if you're having issues, you know, maybe you got some lights that are kind of going opposite one another, whatever it may be, don't start just pulling things apart. You really want to troubleshoot it by first taking a look and making sure that you have the right connections on the back. That's generally going to be your main issue. And really up front, I don't worry too much. As long as you have everything tightened down, generally that's going to be a good connection. But again, worthwhile to double check to make sure it's all working before heading out on the road, and that way you stay safe and legal. So as we run through, we'll start with our running lights. We'll then do our left turn signal, our right turn signal, and then finally our brakes. If you did things a little bit different, feel free to send some pictures of how you did it or leave a comment. That really helps us kind of get ideas of what neighbors like you are doing at home during your installations, and it's helpful for other neighbors just like you. They're going to be flat towing their Sierras. My name's Brad. Thanks for joining us.